Welcome back. One of the problems for cyber and intel leaders in government to deal with is how fast the threat landscape shifts. Players who weren't involved at all or weren't threats in the recent past are major threats now. Shepard is president and CEO of Hypori. At DOTA's 2024 recently, he says the threat landscape is changing really quickly.
Things that are going on in the Middle East, are kind of growing out of scale, at scale that we didn't anticipate. I think that causes some level of desperation from certain actors, which that can present problems and threat and all on its own. We still have, the largest threat, which is, China, who is never dormant, right? That they actually, I think, prefer when there's other conflicts that are happening because they can kind of operate quietly in the background. And then, of course, Russia, Ukraine, that's a problem set. I think that the Russian leadership would love to distract from their battle and get people to look in other directions. And often that can happen from a technical standpoint. From a technical threat landscape, I don't want to say it's the same old thing, but in some ways it's the same, in some ways it's new. So our generation's version of splitting the atom, right? The previous version when they split the atom is like, okay, this could solve world energy or end the world.
Yeah.
Our version of that is AI, right? And so what we're seeing now is this emergence of AI and does AI present a threat or is it helpful? And the answer is yes. Just much like the atom. How it's going to be used by threat actors is still yet to be seen. I think it's going to give aggressive platforms, very well-developed nation-state actors like the Chinese, et cetera. It's going to give them even better of an edge. The interesting turn is going to be, though, it also gives people who don't have a lot of skill. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to actually make the threat environment more dense, with more rudimentary or more traditional types of threats, but coming from more directions. So the attack surface is hugely critical right now, right? And I mean, that's obviously one of the things that we focus on is trying to reduce that attack surface. I think that's a lot of this conference. I think a lot of the conversations about that are about, okay, how do we reduce attack surface? How do we diversify threat, so that we can actually minimize loss of data, loss of capability, loss of visibility. Maintaining information dominance on a battlefield is always difficult, right? How can we use those technologies to do that?
It sounds like you're proposing a democratization almost of threat capability because of artificial intelligence. Does that mean potentially that there is a democratization of the defense responses as well?
AI is definitely going to play in defense just like it plays in offense, right? And we're going to have to get smarter. One of the big things that I think you're going to be able to leverage AI for even now is going to be like insider threat. So being able to see patterns, behaviors, people doing things that they shouldn't be doing, accessing things they shouldn't be accessing, right? It's going to change that landscape a lot. I think possession of the data, data is our currency, right? I mean, anymore, it's actually probably more valuable than currency, information, right? And maintaining information dominance. So when you talk about democratizing the threat and defending the mechanism, I think it's also about how do you actively control information, ensure that it's not being tainted. One of the big threats with AI is AI poisoning. Mm-hmm. How do you ensure, if you look at the external influence now with social media, if AI is being used to use social media as an attack platform, influence outcomes, it doesn't have to be a direct offense. It can be an influence campaign, right? And so it makes the intelligence community's job really hard on how they can try to stay ahead of the bad guy.
Mm-hmm. And that gets to the topic of maintaining that edge, the technological edge over a potential adversary.
Sure.
When we don't know which adversary may be the potential threat actor in a situation, what's the implication there for how one thinks about what the response and what the potential defense is going to be?
Well, I mean, there's the old military saying we always say is, no good plan survives first contact.
That's right.
I think the answer is it's all of them. So there isn't going to be which adversary. It's going to be all of them, and it's going to be for different reasons, for different motivations, and with different desired outcomes. How do we stop that, or how do we get our desired outcome? Is probably more realistic. Because I don't think we're going to be able to stop it. We have to have our priorities straight. We have to invest both from a government standpoint, but also an industry standpoint. Industry has to participate. We're seeing now CMMC just came out, and the CMMC guidance came out, and I've heard some people celebrate it, and I've heard some people kind of go, oh God, why? You know, it's going to be so expensive to do, and this is BS, this is government overreach or whatever. And it's really not, right? If you look at it, like the Chinese have a joint strike fighter that looks a lot like ours. Why is that? It wasn't a DoD network that got hacked. It was a contractor's network that got hacked, right? And they stole the plans. That's the way our adversaries are going to continue to optimize and come up fast, is they're going to steal a lot of information. And the next generation of AI isn't going to be invented by one of these massive companies, because most of these massive companies buy technology. They don't invent it. It's going to be invented by a 10-person company that's maybe here at this show or somewhere else that's approaching something new. And if they're not actively defending that IP, that idea, the thought, the implementation, then it's vulnerable. So it's a hard challenge that is going to take all of us.
You can read more at fedgovtoday.com.